the reason that I'm very intrigued by this book is because it really goes against the grain when it comes to a lot of things dog trainers and dog people and people in the industry tend to believe or put out there. This book is, these authors are not afraid to tell you that most people ruin dogs. So a few years ago, I started to study service dogs, assistance dogs. These are dogs raised and trained usually by an agency to perform some task immediately helpful to humans. Now, he's talking specifically about service dogs or assistance dogs. And now it says right here, good assistance dogs are rare. The number of assistance dogs working in the United States is less than 2% of the pet slash companion dog population. Perhaps 1 or 2% of the blind population is now has or would like a dog. Okay, 1 or 2% of the blind population now has or will like a dog. 1 to 2% of the blind population. Okay, and only less than 2% of the pet companion dog population, that makes up the assistance dogs. Less than 2%. We're talking about very few number of dogs in a large scale. And if we're talking about the guide dogs, 1 to 2%. Of course, this was written back in 2001. So roughly about 20 years ago. The stats could be a little bit different. Over half of the dogs that enter the system fail. So if you know anything about service dogs, you know that you cannot make any dog a service dog. This has to be a specific individual that has been properly selected for that purpose. I would say a large number, I'm not even going to put a percentage because I don't know, but from talking to a lot of people, even service dog handlers, people with service dogs, they don't even have a freaking clue of what a service dog actually is. So there are a lot of people that truly, to their bones, believe that you could grab any dog off the street and make it a service dog. Something that is entirely wrong, okay? Because if you know how to do this properly, you know that not every dog has the right temperament for this. So it's actually very generous. The way he's putting it, it says over half of the dogs that enter the system fail. So most of the candidates are not even suitable candidates because that's how it is. I've done temperament tests, a lot of temperament tests, and I've evaluated a lot of dogs. And I could easily tell you if I were to test or evaluate about 20 to 50 dogs, I'd maybe find 1 or 2 good candidates. Maybe 1 or 2 good candidates. And I know this because I've done that. I have evaluated a batch, a huge number of dogs for the purpose of potentially getting a candidate or 2 or however many I could find. And I've tested like over 30 dogs easily and sometimes completely walked out with nothing. Or maybe 1. All right, so listen to this. These dogs are supported by fundraising activities and advertising. The owner producers are specialists in managing and marketing, but don't know very much about dogs. This is so true, and I've seen this firsthand. They hire trainers and veterinarians who process puppies for service. The brochures feature individually excellent dogs and graduation ceremonies of human dog teams. It is standard business and product sales technique. Sell the idea to people donating the money. So it goes on a little bit more. Then it says, it is all about people, right? So it is all about people. How dogs help people. It is about how dogs enable people to go out in public. It is how this person's life has changed because of the dog. I go to conferences And for me, they are boring. No offense, but I like studying dogs. And at these conferences, rarely does anyone mention dogs or dog behavior. It is all about how much better people feel with an agency trained dog. It is about how to get insurance to pay for the agency trained dog and who should regulate activities, set standards, get grants. Sometimes there are a few service dogs attending these conferences. Often it looks like these dogs don't know where they are or whom they're with. They look as bored as I am, sitting through uninteresting sessions that are not about dogs. So everything, yeah, the whole service dog industry is definitely about. You could say any working dog industry. Like if you look at the hunting dogs, if you look at the police dogs, if you look at the, you know, the search and rescue dogs. Yes, it is all about people. But this specifically, I mean, even with the other industries, even with the working dogs and the hunting dogs, the search and rescue dogs, and the other types of dogs, at least there's a lot of emphasis on the dog, right? There's a lot of emphasis on breeds, performance, what type of performance, what type of dog for which type of performance. Whereas this is just, what can you do for me? What can you do for this person? What can you do for this agency? So I definitely see exactly where he's coming from. Right? They just show little to no evidence of internal motivation to perform these tasks. These are animals that have little comprehension of what they are accomplishing, and they are caught with no chance of getting out except to flunk out. It is a stressful way of life. Now, I'm going to put my 2 cents on that last paragraph where I see where he's coming from, but I have seen service dogs that are actually very, very attached to their humans, and I've seen them perform tasks with a lot of eagerness. Um, yes, service dogs used to be trained with a lot of aversive methods, but as training evolved, so did the training for some of these service dogs. So you actually see service dogs, at least the service dogs that I was involved with helping and training. We made sure that these dogs were doing this in a very motivational fashion. So they learned to perform the tasks in a very motivational fashion. So some of these behaviors became almost self-rewarding. I definitely do see this author's perspective, and I got to think a little bit more about the dog versus the industry as a whole. Now, what he said here is a little bit controversial, but in the grand scheme of things, in the larger scale, which it's something that I've noticed with this particular book, it's very like larger picture, very like large scale, where it says things that if you immediately take it at face value, yes, it's going to offend you. It's going to make you go, no, that's stupid. But if you look at it from a broader perspective, that's how I see this book is just, you know, pointing at all these angles in dogs in general and in the industry in general, kind of looking at it from a larger, broader perspective.